Welcome to Sports Law Weekly. We're your hosts, Jon Weilbacher
and Andrew Marsh.
We'll be talking about the hottest sports topics of the week
and the most relevant sports law issues in the news.
Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Law Weekly. Today is September 13th, 2020. This is actually our first podcast here. It's a big day, don't you agree, Marsh?
Big day. Very excited to finally get this launched and off the ground, Jon.
Yes, it is very exciting. We got a big podcast ahead of us, a lot of things to talk about. We're going to be talking about what's happened this last week. A lot of things have happened this last week in sports. A lot to talk about there. We're going to be talking about the NCAA laws and regulations, and we're actually bringing on two former professional football players to come on and talk about their perspective, what they would have done and if, this happened while they were still college athletes, talk a little bit about their background, what it was like being in the XFL and the NFL, and go a little bit more in depth on that. But there's a lot of things to talk about when we're going to get started. But before all that, I do want to give a quick shout out to Haircraft Co. Haircraft Co. is one of our sponsors that actually sent us a few products, and we do have a little bit of an ad read for them. We started Haircraft Co. 2 years ago with the belief that every man deserves a high-quality hair product at a fair price. We aren't looking to be another men's hair care brand. We want to be part of your daily routine. As a growing brand, we're competing against large corporations, but our commitment will always be the same. Our goal is to create products that get your hair right with minimal expense so that you can conquer every day looking good and feeling confident. Thanks again to Leo for sending us the product. We actually got the sea salt spray with Mediterranean sea salt, light hold, all natural finish. And remember, master your craft. Thank you again, Leo. Well, let's jump into it. Marsh?
Well, yeah, let's get into it. NBA. Lots going on with the NBA this week.
The bubble
down in Orlando seems to be working out pretty good. And last night we just saw a crazy Lakers and Rockets game.
Absolutely amazing, Marsh. I think that series from the get-go, a lot of people had a lot of opinions about it. Small ball versus the big man.
Yep. I know going into it, everybody was pretty hyped and saying, the Rockets could take down the Lakers. They were looking a little shaky against Portland. But at the end of the day, LeBron, AD, they came up pretty big and were able to put away the Rockets 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to be honest. I don't know too much about basketball, but if you do have someone that's 7 feet under the rim versus, I think, Tucker was their biggest player at 6'5", I mean, you're already at a disadvantage. What rebounds are you going to possibly get? I know this last game they had 19 threes behind the arc. Yeah. I mean, it's they're taking the threes because they know they can get the rebound. And, I think from their first game to now their last game, they started getting really comfortable behind the arc, and I think their game has really evolved, and I think they're ready to take on the Clippers.
I agree. Hopefully, that series is still that game's up today, and I think if the Clippers could win, I think that's what everybody predicted from the beginning of the season. LA versus LA, LeBron and AD versus Kawhi and PG.
Yeah, and one thing I also want to talk about here, and I'd like to hear your opinion on that, Marsh, is the impact of LeBron. Let's look at LeBron and let's look at James Harden. There's, two very good players.
Absolutely.
One obviously in the GOAT conversation, but two very good players. But the difference, I think, between LeBron and James Harden is LeBron is a team player. He puts his team first. For those that have watched The Last Dance, they talked a lot about how Michael Jordan didn't become Michael Jordan until he took one step back to take two steps forward. And what I mean by that is he took a step back, put his team first, and then his team elevated to a championship team, which ultimately, Michael Jordan's still the best player on the team. It just made him a more of a household name than it was before. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. He went from averaging 35 points a game to still probably averaging 28 points, but you've got the other guys being able to support him. And I think it's pretty clear here with James Harden and the Rockets. James Harden, you can't deny it. The guy's a great shooter. Averages 35-plus points a season, which is pretty astronomical numbers. But what does that get him? He's gotten league MVP. He's gotten the scoring title. He doesn't have that championship. This is the farthest he's made in the playoffs since he was on the Thunder, coming off the bench as the sixth man. So you really got to question, is James Harden's style of playing really going to excel and get him far in the NBA?
Yeah, I really actually want to take a step back and really say who's at fault because of this, because there's a lot of front office movement in terms of their team rearrangement of players. We obviously saw CP3 leave, bring in Russ. They got rid of the big man Capella. A lot of things happening there, but obviously it didn't work. They brought in another ISO player, someone that plays in a very similar play style to Harden. Sometimes he came off the bench so that they didn't get in each other's way, but it ultimately didn't work.
Yeah, I have to agree. Don't get me wrong. Mike D'Antoni is a great coach. He's definitely done well with the Rockets. I wouldn't necessarily put all the blame on him. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to develop the team around James Harden. And it's failing. It's not getting them over that hump to that next level. Like you said, bringing in Russell Westbrook, solid player. But again, he's an ISO man also. They both want to be the center. They both want to have that last shot, per se, when in the coming seconds. So the big thing is, how do you balance those egos?
Right.
Russ was out in the first couple games in their first series. James Harden still did well. He still is able to excel and propel the Rockets. And then when they came back, you didn't really see much headbutting. They were still able to do well, but evidently, they were getting crushed by the Lakers.
Yeah, I agree. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is that whole dilemma with Daniel House. Can you speak on the matter?
Yeah, Daniel House. He reportedly had an unauthorized guest. We were told it might have been a woman or not, but in his hotel room.
Yeah. What was the repercussions of that?
They suspended him. They kicked him out of the bubble.
Yeah.
And I have to say I do agree with that decision, because if they didn't, right, say they said, "Oh, it's okay," and they just let it go, then it's setting the precedent of, "Oh, anybody can do it," and there's going to be no repercussions. If you want to play in the league, you want to be able to play like they're doing given these times. You kind of got to follow the rules a little bit. So, I think it was a stupid choice on his part. He really let his team down, evidently, since they ended up losing. Now they got to go home. I don't think that was the sole reason they lost, but it definitely doesn't help that that's one more distraction they got to deal with when they know they're already down 3-1 against the Lakers.
Right.
But
So,
it's just a shame.
Moving forward, we're looking at actually a few other series that we're looking forward to. We got the Clippers versus the Nuggets.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
Yep, I'm excited for that one. Like I said a few minutes ago, that super team was made in the beginning of the summer. Paul George and Kawhi both going out to L.A. So I know they've had their rough patch in the beginning, kind of finding their groove, but they've been looking pretty solid recently. They've been looking pretty solid. And don't get me wrong.
Jamal Murray.
I was just about to say it. Jamal Murray dropping 50 points in the last couple games. He's a player. Him and Jokic are looking pretty good. Personally, I think the Clippers are going to take this one.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
I think the Nuggets are going to be a contender, though. Give it a year or two. Maybe they get a draft pick or develop the players a little bit more. I think they're definitely going to be a contender in that West.
Yes, I agree.
My question is, where's Bol Bol? Where is Bol Bol?
I have no idea. There was a lot of hype surrounding him coming back before the bubble started.
Dude, he was looking pretty good.
He was.
7+ footer, throwing dimes.
Absolutely. Great passer.
Pretty good.
He was threading the defense.
Yeah.
Unreal. I don't know. I think they had to take a step back. Maybe he couldn't keep up with the fast-paced Clippers. Clippers play at a very fast pace.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's why. But I don't know. Let's hopefully maybe we see him next game. Who knows? Maybe that's the reason why. Maybe the reason why they aren't winning in this series.
Yeah, but we'll see. That game's today, and then coming up next week, Eastern Conference Finals.
Yep.
Local Boston Celtics versus Miami Heat.
Yes. Boston is very excited about that. It's crazy. I first want to give a shout out to the Raptors for proving a lot. A lot of people doubted them. Mm-hmm. With Kawhi leaving, some might deem the King of the North, which is also controversy because Marcus Smart just deemed himself King of the North, which trouble in paradise.
Oh yeah.
But the Raptors with Kyle Lowry, I mean, they just wanted it. They had something to prove. I think it was unfortunate how things came out. You can't really say that here in Massachusetts, but it is unfortunate. I mean, They were on a mission.
Yeah.
They were on a mission. It was unfortunate how things turned out, but I think they're going to, if they move some things around, maybe get one missing piece, they could be a championship contender next year.
I mean, they look pretty good. Like you said, they had Kyle Lowry, Spicy P, Fred Van Vliet. Those are three lower name guys that you wouldn't think of, hey, this is the big leagues. They were leading that Raptors team.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
you got to give them credit.
So now
for that.
looking forward, Celtics Heat. We got Jimmy Buckets.
Oh, Jimmy Buckets.
The man, the myth, the legend. Guy came from Philly. For the Philly fans, I'm sorry to hear about that. He was a real hero out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just beyond the arc is just unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
He really took over in Miami. I mean, they have a great overall team.
Yeah, a lot of young guys. Tyler Hero, 20 years old. He's making clutch threes.
Absolutely.
At this late series.
Ice in his veins, some might say.
Very
exciting. Unreal team. This is the first time that a number 1 or number 2 seed have made it to the conference, the Eastern Conference title, I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is going to be a great series.
A lot of underdogs.
Yeah, I predict this is going to be a 7-game series.
Yeah, I think it's going to be neck and neck. I will have to say, and this is my take,
your take.
It's going to be the Heat. I think the Heat are going to come out. I think, again, they have something to prove. They have this chemistry that I haven't seen. I mean, they how many games did they lose? They only lost 1 or 2 in this series so far? 2?
I mean, look at it. They went up against the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis.
Shut him down.
MVP,
Shut him down.
In the East.
Jimmy Buckets backed up into him, and he's half his height.
Yeah. They made him look like a bona fide scrub. It's unbelievable. And I love Giannis.
Yes.
I love Giannis. I'm the first to admit that.
Speaking of Giannis, let's transition here. Where is he going? Is he going to leave?
The rumor mill begins. I don't know.
It's tough to say. Last night, and we're filming again on September 13th, on the 12th, he met with management.
Yeah.
They're already sitting down with him. I mean, if I was the Milwaukee Bucks, I'd be thinking about this. One, Giannis told me last year or even 2 years ago, I want to win a title.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not with you, it's with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
He's not here to make the money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, that's part of it. But he's not here to just do that. He wants to do something special. So that being said, can Milwaukee pitch him something where he will stay?
I think the only way they can do that if they can bring in another solid player to support Giannis. Don't get me wrong. The Bucks had a very good team. They had a very solid team. But I still think they're missing that link. I mean, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, I believe. They fell short this year. Giannis can only do so much.
Riddle me this. You got Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
You got Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
Who's next? Who's their third tier? I mean, it's a huge drop-off.
Yeah.
It's a huge drop-off. Middleton was gassed. Every time they took a timeout, it was because because Giannis was out at that time,
mm-hmm.
Middleton was the only guy taking the shots.
I know.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
And so it's they have no depth.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any other clutch players.
Mm-hmm.
I think Giannis is leaving. And now let's talk about this. Where is he going to go?
I know. I've heard rumors Miami.
Yes.
Somewhere out
Golden
west.
State. Lakers even potentially. I know the Lakers. I am a Laker fan. The Lakers have been holding cap space. So most of the deals they signed were only 1 year because they knew Giannis' deal was going to be coming up. They only signed most of their talent besides their core players meaning AD and LeBron. I mean, obviously AD is coming up too, but we're in hopes of him resigning.
Mm-hmm.
Kuzma, whatever. But they only have most of those players on 1 year deals because they're going to have this cap space to be able to pitch to Giannis.
Yeah, I don't know if Giannis, that'd be a good for him out in LA, though. I don't know if it'd be a good
I don't
fit.
think he's about the spotlight, to be honest. But, I mean, as a Laker fan, I can only be hopeful.
You've got, LeBron's definitely taken a backseat. He's not the star player. He's become the assist machine, dishing it out to Rondo and especially AD. I think throwing Giannis in there, I think it's too many.
Too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's too many. I don't think he should go to Miami. Not that I have anything against Miami. I think that would just look bad. I think he'd look like Kevin Durant when he went to Sacramento.
That's what people are already saying.
Golden State, yeah. I don't think he should go to Miami. I don't think he will. I think he's bigger than that. I think, I don't think he wants to leave. I know he plays with his brother. His brother's on the Bucks. So I don't think he's going to want to leave. But I think the Bucks have to do something to help him.
Right.
He's done everything for them to help the Bucks and their organization.
I read this morning, and this could be, again, trouble in paradise, but he actually on Instagram unfollowed all his Bucks teammates except for his brother.
I did not hear that one. That's
So what message is he sending by unfollowing him? And that was after his meeting with management.
Yeah, that's not sending a good message there. I don't know. I think this will be one crazy free agency this fall and winter. What would have been the summer, but I think this will be very interesting to see. I don't know. I don't know where he's going to go.
A lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
Transitioning, NFL.
The NFL is back.
It is back, and I couldn't be more excited. We had the Chiefs versus the Texans on Thursday night. Unreal game. Well, unreal game really just to see Mahomes do what Mahomes does, honestly.
Yes. Just absolutely run train. And the Texans are a good team. Don't get me wrong. Deshaun Watson's a solid quarterback.
Amazing.
I think they're a good team. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders just yet. I think they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
But for the Chiefs to come in and score that many points.
Yeah.
And kind
of statement. It's a statement
like that. Yeah.
The one thing I also want to talk about that I just read up again this week that I forgot about because it felt like the offseason was forever. Randall Cobb is on the Texans. They have Randall Cobb.
Did not remember that. Yeah.
They have Randall Cobb. They have the guy out of the Miami, Kenny Stills. And I'm blanking on a few of the other wide receivers that they got out there. Will Fuller.
Yeah, well, they just lost Deandre Hopkins.
Yeah, well, I mean, they just lost Deandre Hopkins because, I mean, they were opening up room for other talent. They wanted to have more, like, above-average players than just one kind of target. I feel like they might have been struggling with a lot of double teaming on Hopkins, and they just weren't about that. But I don't know. I think the offense with the Texans are good. They just maybe don't have all their ducks in a row, so to speak. But again, something to look forward to. Another topic is DeAndre Hopkins' new contract.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
I think he's worth the money, and also very interesting. He negotiated his own contract.
Yeah,
did not have any attorneys present, which is very interesting. He was able to just sit down with the GM and come to terms, and I'm impressed.
Yeah, no,
it's someone who's learning about contracts. They're complicated things. So for an NFL player to be able to sit down and negotiate his own contract for what he wants, that either shows A, the organization really wants him, or B, DeAndre Hopkins a pretty good negotiator.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I hope he had a attorney at least review some of the contractual terms. The actual negotiation part I can understand if he wanted to negotiate, but as legal professionals ourselves, I would at least hoped he had someone look at the terms and obligations that he'd be signing off. But on contract extensions, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. I think that's a good extension for the Saints. I think if the Saints were to have lost him, I think that would have been a pretty heavy blow because the Saints are a good team.
Yeah.
They've always been the pretty top NFC team.
Yeah. And Kamara, a big part of that.
Yeah. No. I think Drew Brees is getting older, but he's still a solid quarterback.
Absolutely.
You don't really know how many years he's got left. But I think extending Kamara's contract is probably a pretty big move for them. The NFC, being a Giants fan, I can attest. The NFC has its ups and downs. Between the Eagles, we're always a hit-or-miss team. Giants have been a miss team for recently, but one can hope.
Yes.
The Cowboys.
Oh, yes.
Cowboys are a very up-and-down team. Who's going to know what happens, what Dak's going to do
this year?
Their
wide receiver they just got. Who was their wide receiver they just got from, was it Oklahoma?
Oh, the one they picked up in the draft.
What was his name?
Yeah, Lamb, I believe.
Yeah, Lamb. Unreal talent. I don't even know how he slipped in the draft.
I don't know.
He's going to be something special right next to the other wide receiver they got out of Oakland. Was it Oakland?
I'm not 100% sure.
Who was the wide receiver? I'm blanking. Anyway.
Not 100%. But yeah, I think the big thing for that team is going to be Dak. Will Dak show up? He finally got that contract that he wanted, I believe.
Right.
He held out for a while. Zeke got his contract last year. Dak started off all right last year, but then he kind of tanked.
Yeah.
Went downhill. I mean, they ended up blowing it. It was them and the Eagles.
Dak, I believe, turned down something that was going to make him closer to the highest paid quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I want to say, I mean, I have nothing against Dak, but he just hasn't proved that he was much more than that. So him turning down that contract, it just makes you scratch your head.
Yeah, I mean, I think he needs to bring that team to the playoffs and close to the Super Bowl for him to argue, hey, I'm a top top tier quarterback because he hasn't shown it yet. I agree.
Another quick extension I want to talk about is Cooper Kupp. The clear-cut wide receiver number 1 out in Los Angeles. The last couple of years they've had a lot of wide receivers. They've had, they had Robert Woods and they had Brandon Cook. Brandon Cook actually leaving recently. Actually going to the Texans. That's another one of the wide receivers. Very huge depth there. But as a clear-cut number 1, he's done special things. I mean, he got hurt a few years ago. But I mean, he has been an outstanding talent for the Rams.
No, I think that's a solid extension there. And the Rams,
$48 million, by the way.
Yeah, the Rams have always been a solid team. They went to the Super Bowl a couple of years back. They're always going to be a top team. So I think extending him is just going to keep elevating their game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now moving on to the MLB.
Finally, baseball was back during the summer. I was personally excited to see that. Watch the Yankees. They've been a little bit upsetting the past couple weeks. I don't know what's up with them. We'll get to them in a sec. But yeah, that playoffs coming up at the end of the month, September 27th. That 60-game season's almost over. And, they expanded the playoffs, 16 teams instead of 10. Now, I kind of understand they've made a lot of new rules due to COVID and the shortened season. I'm not a huge fan of all of them. I understand they want to let more teams in for the playoffs, try to get more guys playing. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
Again, I'm kind of indifferent with that one. I'm not super against it, but I'm not all in for it. But we'll see. But the teams are looking good. Oakland, Tampa, Chicago, top of the AL East, the American League, I mean. And, my question is, as Yankee fans, what happened?
Yeah.
They signed Garrett Cole, almost $400 million contract over the summer, top pitcher in the league. He's doing well, but they're injury struck.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, they're under injury list again. And it's hard to watch. So hopefully my Yankees can bounce back. And, I heard yesterday they put out a report that Stanton and Judge should be back next week. Cole looked great yesterday or 2 days ago against his Orioles outing. So one can only hope.
Yeah. What about the Dodgers in San Diego out west?
Pretty crazy. Dodgers, San Diego, even Atlanta, top of the National League. Dodgers signing Mookie Betts to that big contract over the summer. Then they got Clayton Kershaw on the mound. They've got solid players. They've always been a World Series contender. So they're looking good. But San Diego.
Out of nowhere.
San Diego's got a player. They've been doing pretty well.
I went to school out in San Diego, and I've been to a lot of Padres games. They've never made a run like this in my time of, supporting them. But I'm not a Padres fan by any means, but, going to school out there, this is something special for them.
I agree. They signed Manny Machado a year or two ago to a big contract, so they're looking pretty good out there. But this young guy, Fernando Tatis Jr., he's having himself a season.
I think he's up for the most home runs right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's had himself a season between crushing home runs, grand slams.
Right.
He's really leading this team, which is surprising because, no offense, Padres have always been a pretty bad team in baseball.
Back of the bus team.
Yeah, but we'll see. And Atlanta Braves putting up 29 runs in a baseball game. That's a football score right there.
Yeah, it is.
Embarrassing.
If you didn't name the teams, I would not have known what sport you were talking about.
No. But yeah, we'll see. But what is your take on the COVID outbreaks in the MLB? We talked about how basketball's got the bubble down in Orlando. We'll get to hockey in a sec, but they got their bubble in Toronto. How do you think the MLB's been doing with this?
I think we have to look at precedent right now. I think the NBA having, great success with their bubble should speak volumes. I think we need to look at that, look at the fact that I don't believe they've had maybe one or two cases, but I don't even think that. I think very little. And I think it's to the, the great structure of the bubble, the great discipline that the players, the coaches, the staff, all the employees at the facilities have had.
Yep.
So looking at the MLB, them thinking about going to the bubble, I think is the smartest move they can do. Because think about this. Say you're in the championship. What is it, a 7-game series?
Yeah, World Series is a 7-game series.
7-game series. And, one of the star players gets COVID in Game 6. That it's going to be an asterisk, So I think it's the only way to do it. I mean, right now in preseason, things can happen. It's sway here, sway there. But moving forward, I think the bubble is the only way you can ensure a fair fight.
and
for
the health
all the
and
teams.
the safety of
Exactly.
the players. Yeah, I mean, I saw 2 days ago the MLB put out a potential bubble plan for the playoffs. I read somewhere that it'll be the stadium down in Texas, I believe in Arlington, and then out in San Diego as well. They're waiting to vote on that. But I think that might be the smart move, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
I think to ensure no more outbreaks, because they've seen a lot of outbreaks this year between Miami. The Marlins had a very big case outbreak. The Cardinals did. There were some rumors that
the Giants game got canceled the other night because
the Yankees Mets a couple weeks back Subway Series got canceled.
Yeah.
So I think because the baseball, they need the revenue for people watching. So if they keep getting these players sick, they're going to lose money. So I think the bubble might be a smart move, but we'll see what they vote on this week.
Yeah, quick detour here before we talk about the NHL bubble. The Dodgers-Houston game the other night, banging of the trash cans and yelling Houston asterisks.
Yep,
what's your take?
I think that's pretty funny. I mean, that whole controversy back a couple months ago, obviously everything came out with them sign stealing the World Series.
I mean, sports is a very competitive industry. I mean, these people are working their entire life. They're built up with testosterone to compete, and you cheat. It just makes you angry. Yeah. And I think the fans and the players that have played during that season are never going to forget it. And that's why they're called the Houston Asterisks.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that the Dodgers were doing this because if you remember a couple months back when the season first started, Joe Kelly.
Oh, yes.
The Joe Kelly controversy pitched.
They just painted him a mural.
I did see that out in L.A. That's pretty funny. And the iconic him giving a pouty face over to the bench.
Yes.
It's funny. You got to laugh at this stuff. I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, now moving on to the NHL, the bubble in Toronto.
Yeah, bubble in Toronto is working out pretty well, and the NHL has been fun. My hometown Islanders against Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, yes.
Eastern Conference Finals. Lightning are up 2-1. First game was a little shaky. They let up 8 goals. I was a little worried.
I did read that.
Second game, they let up the goal literally at the last second to lose, but the Islanders look solid game 3. They're playing again tonight, so we'll see what that one comes out. And out west, Las Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Dallas Stars, and Dallas is up 3-1. I don't know. The Golden Knights are a pretty solid team. They just moved out to Las Vegas a couple years back. They've had pretty deep runs, so I think they'll be a pretty solid team to watch in the next couple years. Definitely a Stanley Cup contender.
Absolutely. So that's kind of our recap of what's happened this last week in sports. We're now going to be talking about some sports law issues. One of the major ones in the news, especially this last week, I mean, it's been developing ever since August, is the Nebraska issue. The Nebraska football team, University of Nebraska, 8 players filed a lawsuit.
I did see that. Yeah, they filed a lawsuit against the Big Ten.
Yes.
They were arguing that the Big Ten had no right canceling the season.
Right. Well, I think they were arguing that, but I think more importantly, they were arguing the transparency. They said that there wasn't even a vote that happened. And this kind of takes a little bit of a step back looking at the bigger perspective of where these players are coming from. When you go to college, and especially a big-time school like Nebraska, you are playing – I'm not all the players, but a majority of the players are playing to get to the next level. Yep. You're playing to get that money that will set you up for the rest of your life. Yep. And so in bringing this lawsuit, they're not just saying, oh, you're taking away our senior season. It's bigger than that. They're saying you're taking away our potential livelihood.
Yep, our potential NFL career.
The career, but more importantly, the money that they would retire on. And by taking, I mean, a lot can happen in a year, Marsh. And, taking away that year and taking away that chance to go to the NFL next year, because some of those players were probably close, but maybe not all the way there to be that prospect to go into a draft position versus undrafted. And taking that away, I mean, they at least wanted, and from what I understand the complaint correctly, they at least wanted due process. Yep. They wanted there at least to be a vote. They wanted there to be transparency.
Their opportunity to give their side.
Yeah, the Big Ten Conference is a nonprofit organization, and there's Nebraska law, stating that, you have to be compliant and be transparent. And so there's a whole debate on going through that with, the Attorney General now getting involved. And We can report on more of that next week as this starts to develop. But it's heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, I mean, with all these seniors in all sports, it's definitely tough, and I think you are going to see a lot of lawsuits between sports or seasons getting canceled, or players trying to redshirt, take a fifth year, anything just to get their eligibility back. So I'm curious to see how the NCAA is going to deal with this and deal with all these with the legal backlash probably going to come after all this hopefully dies down.
Right. Now we're actually going to be bringing on one of our own, Megan Siegel. She's going to go ahead and talk about some sports law topics that she has written. Again, I just wanted to take another sidestep here. If you haven't already, go on sportslawweekly.com. Go ahead and put your email in to our newsletter. And what that will get you is our updates with our podcasts, our updates with any blogs that we've come out with. It's a great resource if you're into sports, if you're into the legal industry. It's great to stay up to date, and you'll be able to follow us and follow our journey in being able to report on all these topics. But we'll be right back with Megan Siegel. But before that, a quick word from our sponsor, Haircraft Co. Get your hair right with minimal effort and expense. We believe hair is the root of your confidence. The promo code HC15, again, use the promo code HC15 for a discount on your products. Now we're back with our very own Megan Siegel to talk about some constitutional law, the First Amendment. Megan is actually a current attorney out here in Massachusetts practicing employment and contract law. Megan?
Yeah, hey guys. So I guess where I'm going to start today is in 2020, we've seen a lot of professional athletes use their platforms and their voices to bring awareness to issues that mean a lot to them.
Right.
And what we're seeing is there are people who either disagree with them in their stances or just disagree in the way that they're bringing awareness. And at the end of the day, each side's actions are protected under the First Amendment as long as it's not hate speech.
Right.
But with the professional athletes, what it really gets down to is they are employees of the company they work for, which in their case is a professional sports team. And what I've noticed, especially with my background and also working in a limited capacity in professional sports, people don't see a sports team or a professional athlete as a business and an employee until it serves whatever narrative they want to talk about. But at the end of the day, these are people who, just like an iron worker, are employees of a company that have to adhere to the collectively bargained terms between their union and their employer. And so people saying keep politics out of sports or other things of that nature, it all comes down to either what people think is political and where the line is drawn between a professional athlete being on the premises of their employer on their employer's time, or them being in their personal life. And most people have difficulty separating LeBron James, the basketball player, from LeBron James, the person and the father. And with someone like LeBron, who has so many followers on social media internationally, as well as within the United States, where is that line drawn between, right now he's in the NBA bubble. So are we considering that bubble all being on the NBA's time, all on the Lakers' time? Or do we consider it as, if he's not on the court or if he's not at practice, that's his personal time? Because a normal person and a normal employee, whether their job is collectively bargained or an at-will employee, they are going to go to their 9 to 5, go home, and for the most part, yeah, they might have some followers on social media, but once they're out of the office, that's their time. and it's not being as heavily scrutinized by the media, by hundreds of millions of people.
Right. So you're saying, what is the line? What is the line if LeBron James walks into Staples Center in Los Angeles? Is it the moment he walks in is now he's now an employee, he's taken that step, he's now in the quote unquote office, or is it only during times where it's televised or during times where it's designated practice time? Where's the line?
Megan, I also have a question to that point also. Would it be considered the season as his employment period and the off season is his personal time as well? Because I feel like under contract, these organizations are putting themselves out there for the players, so they want to make sure the players are doing the best to stay healthy and stay in season shape. So would you say that their 9-to-5 job is from, say, October till June?
Right, and I think those are really good questions, because I don't think until now we've had to define what that is for a professional athlete. I think for especially team sports, the big four in the United States, I think it's very difficult to define that. Is it the moment you step into the practice rink, the moment you step on to the baseball diamond? Is it when you show up for spring training in Florida or Arizona? And then you have other more individualistic sports, like tennis, for example, where most of the players are working for themselves. They might have endorsement deals, or even figure skaters. And so you can see them as being, quote unquote, on the job at something like the US Open or at nationals if it's figure skating. And I think until now, we've never had to really define for the major professional sports in the United States that are those collectively bargained agreements. We've never had to define what is on the employer's time and what is off of it, because we've never really been in a situation where that crucial detail matters to people.
Now, do you think that's going to be a topic of negotiation for the next CBA if the union's going to decide to renegotiate terms?
I think so, and I know Major League Baseball has their collective bargaining agreement running soon. I know the NHL recently agreed to extend theirs for a few more years. But I do think that when it is time to negotiate, whether the unions are definitely going to push for more freedoms for players to express themselves. And I don't know what stances the league will take. We've obviously been seeing the way that they have reacted, especially with the NFL in 2016 versus the way that they're acting now, being very different from the NBA, who has, especially in the recent past, been very willing to work with their players and to amplify their voices. And I think it'll depend on each league and the direction that each sport is looking to go. Right.
That's very interesting. And now with, the current, collective bargaining agreement, what kind of limitations or should I say, do you think there's going to be potential legal action for people feeling like they're being suppressed in their voice? Let's just take a sidestep here. The game on Thursday night, I know we had previously discussed, there was a lot of boos coming from the stands. There, the team stood together. The team was, without saying anything, saying a lot, by what they were doing. What do you think possible actions are going to come out of that?
I don't really think there will be necessarily legal action in that regard, but I do think, and like I said from the beginning, under the First Amendment, those boos are technically protected, because at the end of the day, that is still free speech. It's what exists in this country. Right. And I think players or organizations might individually take a stance or collectively take a stance depending on the individual stance of the team owners or players, and how, if there's an open dialogue within the teams, because I know every team is different, just like every person is different. And I think that it will be more of a team can issue a press release saying, hey, we don't condone X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, they can't really control or even ban people from doing that, because that would also be in violation of the First Amendment, because a stadium is a public place of gathering.
Gotcha. Okay, so where do you think, moving forward, where we should go? What's your opinion on how the league should handle this?
It's interesting, because I think that as someone that understands that people individually, like I said, are entitled to their opinion and are entitled to voice their opinion as long as it's not hate speech. And I think moving forward, I personally think that a lot of the leagues are trying to listen to the people that bring the leagues money, because at the end of the day, it's a business. And if you alienate your players, the ones that are the product on the field, as harsh as that might sound, if you alienate them, they're going to protest, they're going to boycott, they're going to not play playoff games.
Right.
And they're going to cause you advertising revenue.
Right.
And I think it's a very delicate balance when it comes to the world of professional sports and the dynamic of league to team to player, because it's so different depending on each league, each team, each player. But I do think that at least what we've seen in the last few weeks, is leagues being more accepting of their players using their voices before a game, during a game, after a game, and a complete 180 from what has happened in the past.
Yeah. No,
so it's definitely navigating, uncharted waters, because it's also in a balance of wanting to make sure that the players are treated fairly, that are respected, and that their rights are respected. It's also having to balance the fans and what their opinions are, since so many people are saying they're going to boycott the NFL because of the NFL's new stance. Now, who knows? I mean, today is the first Sunday of NFL football, so we'll see how that really goes.
Yeah.
But, because they'll obviously release the television numbers.
Right.
But
yeah, and I think that's all very interesting, and obviously this is going to be a developing topic moving forward, and it's definitely something we're going to have you come back on, Megan, to discuss and be able to elaborate further as this develops. Definitely going to have you come as a reoccurring guest of ours. I mean, like I said before, you're one of our own, but we are going to have to stay up to date on this, and we do appreciate you, Megan, for spending the time to come on our podcast and be able to discuss this, and we look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Megan. That's very interesting to hear how First Amendment rights come into this, and how different leagues and teams are going to handle the CBAs and everything coming forward. So it's definitely news to me, and it's very interesting to learn about it. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks again, Megan.
Yeah, of course.
Up next, we have friends of the podcast, Micah Holder and Jon Barron. Micah is actually a former XFL professional football player out in Seattle. And we also have Jon Barron, former Chicago Bears kicker. Welcome on, guys. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to be here.
Jon?
Good to meet Jon. Appreciate it, man. It's awesome.
So what we wanted to do is we wanted to first dive into a few of the questions that we have burning. The first one, tailored towards Micah. Your experience in the XFL. First off, The Rock. What's your take?
The Rock. Buying the XFL. What is that like?
I've been a big Rock fan, so I'm very happy that he took ownership or part ownership of this league. I think it'll be a really good thing. He's a marketing genius, so it'll be fun. And if there's any chance to meet The Rock, I'm all for it.
What kind of changes, positive changes, do you think he would bring to the XFL?
I think he's just going to make it just more entertaining in whatever way he can figure that out. It was already an entertaining league. It was pretty fun to play in. It was fast-paced, but, he was a former player too, so I think he's going to have some interesting perspective on it. And like I said, I think his main thing is going to be for ticket sales, so somehow he's going to make it that much more entertaining, and I think it's just going to be fun.
What things do you wish to, the XFL changed in this next, obviously, it coming back? What do you wish to be different?
To be different?
How can it be better?
Yeah, I had a really good experience with the XFL, and specifically in Seattle. It's a beautiful city. Maybe, if anything, just, how they house players, because how we would do it during the season is every team would have every player stay in a hotel for the length of the season. So sometimes it's cool because like sweet life is Zach and Cody, and then sometimes it's like just another day at the hotel. You're confined to one room with the guy, but I mean, I'm not complaining. It was still fun. It was like a little kind of like a college experience that way.
Right.
So it has its pros and cons, but
now,
overall, I had a great experience with the league.
You had a short stint with the Redskins. Comparing,
right.
The XFL and the NFL, what would you say the major differences are?
Well, the major differences, what I'd say right now would be resources, just because, the NFL is very established and they have a lot of, funding backing, their facilities, everything that goes into that. The XFL, that was their relaunch, so basically another inaugural year for them. But still, it was very professional. I was surprised how, everything, they had all the staff that they should have had. They had all the amenities that they should have, just not as, as probably high quality like our gym. Our weight room was in our hotel, which is very convenient and very cool, but it just wasn't as big because it was also in a hotel meeting room. So, I mean, but that comes along with time. The longer that the XFL stays open, the more revenue they make, the more resources they have, the better league will be.
Right.
Mike, a quick question. So I'm very interested in the XFL. How would you describe the XFL? Because I know there's different rules, very slightly compared to that in the NFL. So could you just explain a little bit about what the XFL is like and the rules and everything surrounding that?
Yeah. I mean, before the first game ever kicked off, I was looking at the rules and I was thinking how are some of these rules really going to work? And when it came to actual gameplay, they really didn't do too much difference in gameplay because a lot of the rules didn't really show up, like the two forward lateral passes. That was the thing. We really didn't see that. The kickoffs were a lot different. Special teams was a lot different.
And that was to prevent concussions, correct?
I don't know if it was for sure to prevent concussions. Well, the thing about the kickoff was it was supposed to it might have been to prevent concussions. I could see that now. But it was also to make more kickoffs more deadly, because if the kickoff team is only taking off, 10 yards from the kick return team at the 30-yard line, if you miss one, if you get one good block, you spring loose. It's because it's not running down the field and making your gaps. It's as soon as he catches it, it's going to be that first line, the guy that's going to hit him, or he's going to score. And a lot of times they'll get big returns because of that. So I think it's all about scoring in this league. So they try to find ways where you can score in any given play. So, like I said, it was interesting like that. It was exciting like that. It was just trying to adapt to something new and see how you can kind of work that into your system to score some points.
That's very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Segueing now to Jon, since we just heard about the XFL. Jon, can you, what was it like being in the NFL? Why don't you give your experience and share a little bit about that?
I mean, when you're in college, a lot of my coaches would always say the NFL, stood for not for long, right?
Yeah.
So I got to experience. Micah knows too. It's very cutthroat. It's a very different experience from the college realm, right? And it's a lot more. It's a job. So kind of just getting into that, it was difficult, but I really enjoyed it. I loved it. It was very professional. It was very, you're with some of the best athletes in the world. So just being able to do that, it was very humbling, and the experience was very special. And it's something that, I'll never forget. I'll always remember. And I just really enjoyed myself and enjoyed my time with them.
That's awesome.
Speaking on that, it was the Chicago Bears. So one of the burning questions we do have is, did you get a chance to meet Mitch Trabinsky?
Mitch Trabinsky? No, I did not get to meet him, unfortunately, only because I was in the rookie mini camp. But it was really special just being able to be in that facility and be, where I saw a lot of pro athletes, especially, pros who weren't there in rookie mini camp. But it was special to just be in the locker room, be around some of those other guys that, were drafted that season, and just kind of being in the locker room, walking through the locker room, seeing all the different lockers. You see Mitch Trubisky's locker, you see all these guys' lockers, and I did get to meet Khalil Mack, which was really
very cool.
That is very cool.
It was short-lived, he was just coming into the locker room. And, some of those guys, it's crazy.
How much did you have to look up to see him?
He was a very tall person. He was very big, very intimidating. But given all those factors, he was a super nice guy. He was super friendly, and it was a really special experience to be able to just say what's up to him even. It was cool.
Yeah, I would imagine you can't really have too long of a conversation with him without your neck hurting or just feeling too intimidated. He's a very, very big person.
It was great to meet him.
So the next topic we want to transition into, and we're obviously going to talk to both of you, obviously former college athletes for San Diego State. A current topic, and obviously been a topic for quite a while, is the transition out of the Mountain West to a league that's probably more suited for San Diego State. Obviously now with 3 to 4 championships in the last 10 years. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think they're going to make that transition, or they're going to stay in the Mountain West?
I'll let you go first, Jon.
I was just about to say the same thing to Micah. No, I can go first. And Jon, just to make sure you're asking this question, you're just asking if you feel that San Diego State is going to maybe join the Pac-12. Is that correct?
Correct. If they're going to make that transition, or you think that, they're going to stay in the Mountain West, obviously for political reasons.
There's a lot more to it, and I think the biggest thing that it comes down to is really recruiting. And when it comes to the Pac-12, it's if you join the Pac-12, it's going to be more of, and I'm sure Micah knows the same thing just from being in the meetings with Coach Long and kind of talking about these things too. But just recruiting from San Diego and having to compete with, schools like UCLA, schools like Stanford, all these other schools that are USC that are right here, ASU. It's just adding San Diego State into that mix it'd be interesting for sure to see how that would play out recruiting wise. But I'm not too sure as far as politically if San Diego State would be able to join the Pac-12, if they would let them in or not, just for that being a big reason, the recruiting part of it. But I think it would be interesting, and I definitely think San Diego State could compete.
Micah?
Yeah, so if they were to join the Pac-12, they need another team. That's why whenever there was a discussion about, leaving the Mountain West going to Pac-12, it was like, okay, who would go to the Pac-12 South, who'd go to the North, and they're always kind of like Boise would go to the North, and then, San Diego State would join the South. So, I mean, like John said, San Diego State has shown that they can compete with the Pac-12, and we've had a really good record against them in the last, few years. So, I think when it comes to recruiting, San Diego State is a great place. We all went to school there. We know how amazing it is. And, I think we can compete in recruiting just because, UCLA and USC would be like the premier people in Southern California, but San Diego State is also in San Diego, which I think is better than LA to be. But that's just my bias also. But when it comes to, like, do I want them to leave the Mountain West? I really don't have I don't have, either way. I'd be fine with it because, we dominate in the Mountain West. We proved that we can play there very well. But we've also, I kind of like the challenge of the Pac-12, because I know that we can have a shot to really compete in that conference too.
Yeah, I guess so. At this point now, it's just waiting to see if San Diego State will be able to make that plunge to the Pac-12. But
and it's also interesting. We learn about, as legal professionals now, is the copyright issue. Is it going to be the Pac-14 if you make that transition? Is it, is it still going to be the Pac-12? Does the Big Ten, does the Big Ten have more than 10 teams in the? Yeah. So maybe they would keep the Pac-12.
I think they might keep the Pac-12 just so they don't have to deal with all the legal battles of having to change all the merchandise.
You might turn into the Washington football team, left without a name.
The Pac-12 used to be called the Pac-10.
I did know that.
I did not know that. That's interesting, actually.
So then Utah joined, and Utah was previously in the Mountain West before that. Utah and I believe it was TCU were both in the Mountain West, and then Utah joined the Pac-12. I don't know whichever other team joined the Pac-12, and then TCU.
I think it was Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. I think
maybe
Colorado was the team that came in.
Maybe it's Colorado. Could see that.
Awesome. So one of the other topics that we wanted to dive in and take a little bit of a deeper dive is the NCAA. Obviously, the new rules and regulations that have come out. There's multiple states, I think around 13 states, that have passed a new state law allowing athletes to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. California being one of them. Curious, what are your thoughts? I mean, college athletes getting paid. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that's going to change the dynamic?
I'll go first on this one. I am all for it. I'm all for athletes getting paid in college just because of how much money a school makes and, how not little that we got paid, because we did get paid, but, it was for, food, clothes. It was for the necessities, rent. But, think of a guy like when we were there, a guy like DJ Pumphrey, how big they were marketing him. He had a whole Heisman campaign on the side of our freshman.
On the side of the freeway, yes.
And so, they used him a lot for ticket sales, and I'm sure he knew that too. And he's probably hearing about this right now, and he's probably thinking the same thing, like, wow, just to think if there was that chance to get paid, like, who knows how the pay scale would be, but still, like, any form of, players getting paid, I'm all for it. I'm just all for it. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Pumphrey's and Marshall Faulk's jersey are still being sold in the San Diego State bookstore.
Wow. See, yeah, he's waiting on that check then. I already
know. John?
Yeah, I was muted, but I was laughing, Micah. That was a good one. But, no, man, I'll start off by saying, I mean, I'm extremely grateful for, being able to experience college football, being able to experience being on scholarship and what that was like. But with that being said, it was also, an experience that was, people I think a lot of it is perspective, kind of looking at athletes, because I hear the other side of the argument too. But I think when you're living that life and you understand it is a full-time job, you really don't have much free time, and you're pretty much at the discretion of the team. What they tell you to do, you get an itinerary and you follow that itinerary week in, week out, and hopefully it turns into wins for the team. But I think it's living off that paycheck. As Micah knows, there were a lot of times where we couldn't even go see a movie or go get dinner or go get lunch or anything like that because we didn't have the funds or the money. And there were a lot of times where I had to call my mom for money. And with that being said, I am a financial advisor, so it's not like I was out there spending my money all over the place. I had a good system of budgeting, and I knew what I was doing with it. But even that, it was still difficult to kind of be able to live off of. So I think for a lot of the guys, I completely agree with it. If you're at that level and people are profiting off your name, especially the school that you play for, you should be getting compensated. And I think for a lot of the guys, it'll make a big difference. And for a lot of the guys, it's what should have been done from the beginning. I mean, even guys like Micah. Micah was a big stud at our team, and it's a lot being said for a team where we ran the ball a lot, And he was a wide receiver, and he still made huge plays for us, and he was still one of the top dogs on our team. So I think guys like that, and Rashad, talking about Pumphrey, talking about a guy like Rashad too. They used him a lot for a lot of promotional campaigns. They used him a lot. Chapman too, our quarterback. They used a lot of guys for a lot of marketing, and I think a lot of times it would have been nice for them to, even if it was $10, I think it would have been nice.
Now, do you think this will affect recruiting in the coming years? Because off the top of my head, I know California passed a bill like this. Florida passed a bill like this. Do you think this will affect where players are going to go? You think they'll decide to go to a school like a USC in California or San Diego State, or like a Florida, University of Florida, over a big team like Alabama or Auburn or something like that?
I'll go first on this one, but I think for the big schools, I think if you have an opportunity to play at a bigger school, I don't think kids are gonna pass that up too much, even if they are gonna get compensated, which I know could sound crazy, but for a lot of these kids, those bigger schools or those bigger names are what they dream of. They go to bed when they're 8, 9, 10 years old, dreaming about playing at a school like that. And when the opportunity finally comes, I don't think getting compensated on the side might change that. But for legally, I should say, but for a lot of the kids, I think if it's between two big schools and one of the schools is in a state where they could get compensated, I could see that being a little tricky for some players and their decisions. But I think more than anything, I think kids are thinking about the team that they're going to, the program that they're going to, the coaching that they're going to receive, and more than anything, if they're going to get that experience to play at the next level.
Right.
So I think keeping that in mind, I think, is going to make the biggest difference for a kid's decision. But I think money could play a factor for some of the guys, but I don't think it'll be the be-all, end-all. I don't think they'll lose too much on this.
Now, I would also open this question up to Micah. I mean, it's interesting that you say that because there are some players that, they go to college with the intention of making it to the NFL to take care of their family, but if their family is in dire straits now, which, I mean, it's maybe not the entire population, but there are athletes out there that don't come from the greatest backgrounds. And if they have a chance to make an instant impact right out of high school to go help their family, with bills or whatever back home, don't you think that would cause them to reconsider going to a school in one of those states versus going to a big-time Alabama school?
Yeah, I can see that. If you're in a situation like that, and if you're kind of like me, like family is like one of my driving motivations in life, I would definitely, sacrifice where I want to play for my family if it can help out at that time. But I agree with what Jon said too, where he said, if you grew up just watching a team, having a favorite team, had the opportunity to play for that team, I think not a lot of players would pass that up just because, when you go to college and play, and you're like serious about football, like you're playing because you're gonna be playing there because you think you have a shot to like have an impact and have an opportunity to play beyond that college and play in the NFL. So I mean, it comes down to your opportunity to where you think you can excel at, and then when it comes to money, I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I think it's going to affect recruiting for sure. But for the large part, I think a lot of players are going to go to the places they really want to play at. I think the money will be kind of secondhand to that. But I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I think if everybody gets paid, it's not going to be too much of. If every school is like down to pay players, it's not going to be too much of a upper hand in recruiting. But if it's only going to be select schools, California has passed that law. If it's going to be like that, I can see a lot of players that want to play in the Pac-12 only playing in the Pac-12 California schools. If there's going to be only a few teams in the Mountain West, offering that, I could see, maybe half the people flipping from one decision to another just because of that. And we don't know how much they're getting paid yet, but I'd assume it'd be something somewhat decent. So, I mean, I think if it happened during our time in college, I would definitely give it a second thought.
What would be the line, Micah, if you were offered a full ride scholarship to Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, whatever school you figure is the number one school to attend, and this is no shake on San Diego State, but if whatever the number one school is, what would be the line? If it was some kind of guarantee of they were going to use your name for a certain amount of endorsement deals or whatever, and they said this is the dollar amount you could get year one,
right?
What is that amount?
Well, then it's not really about the pricing, because if you're going to the number one school, you just have that much better opportunity to be seen and that close of an opportunity to get to the NFL. So at that point, it's more priceless. So I think that would be an easy decision for me. The price amount wouldn't really affect me. I was never needing money, but I mean, like John, we had a budget and it was tough sometimes. I was always eating bagel bites. So I mean, it would be nice to have a little bit of a cushion in college, but yeah, when it comes to the number one school, I definitely want to play for the number one school because that's where, the best competition is probably going to be at, and the best opportunity to be seen is going to be at.
Yeah. Still on that point.
Yeah.
Do you
think...
yeah,
I was just going to add on to Micah, just saying, we don't even know how much they are getting compensated, and I think that's a big factor too, kind of seeing all that stuff come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Still on that point, do you think that'll change dynamics of teams now, though? Guys coming in knowing these X, Y, and Z players are getting paid and they're not. Do you think that'll affect how they're viewed? Will they want them to do things more? Will people try to buddy up with them more? How do you think that'll affect that stuff?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think knowing that a player is getting paid, say that you're not getting paid that well, or maybe you're a walk-on, so you might not be getting paid. Well, we know there's a lot of players on teams that are more deserving than players that are that might be on scholarship. We've seen it on our team. Everybody works just as hard. When it comes to production, everybody doesn't produce just as much just because of how football works. Not everybody gets to have an opportunity. Not everybody starts.
Yep.
But I don't even know how coaches would. I don't know how coaches would do it either. I think if you're a coach and you come in with a freshman that's getting paid more than a lot of your seniors, maybe that's a situation, and
right.
The freshman doesn't pan out after 2.5 years. What? It's kind of hard. What's gonna be? It's not like the NFL unless they make it like the NFL and they could just start cutting players if they don't like what they see. But that would be another whole issue. That would be very
right.
problematic.
Now, looking at the perspective from the player, do you think it would get to players' heads where, right now there's scholarships. There's 65 scholarships a Division I team can hand out. do you and on that point, like, you know, if you're on scholarship, you're on scholarship. You're not necessarily better than the other person. You're not getting more money than the other person. But now if you're getting more money, you're like the highest paid player on the team. Do you think that gets to your head? Do you think that changes, like, oh, I'm better than this, or, you know, this coach is yelling at me, but I'm worth this? Like, you think that's a factor?
I think it comes down to your character. You know, I don't see like Jon, you know, Lord Baron. He could easily trademark that, by the way. Let's say he was the highest paid player. I don't think it's gonna go to his head. You know, there might be some other players that might affect, like Rashad Penny. I don't think that'd go to his head. But you just never know what money probably could do at that age to a person. You know, you just get out of high school. You're still trying to mature as a man. So there's some factors that could lead into it, but it's honestly, I could see it going both ways.
All right. Now, again, still on that topic, do you think, you know, when the person that's making the most amount of money, that's going to change the dynamic outside of, you know, the football center, outside of the locker room, where, you know, you're going out on a Saturday night and everyone looks to the guy who's getting the Nike endorsement deal, or the, you know, from whomever, and is making the most amount of money? Do you think that now changes the dynamic of the social aspect of college sports?
Yeah, I think it would be kind of similar to the NFL. You know, the guys that get paid the most in the NFL, you know, when they walk around, they're seen. Just that recognition of the money kind of gives you a certain status. So socially, I think in the locker room, I don't think it would play too much of an advantage, just because everybody's competing. Maybe it won't be something that's said, but socially, I think it'd be something that's brought up outside of the locker room.
Jon?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to sports is, especially being Division I college athlete, just playing with the guys in the same room. I don't think it'll play too much of a part. I think the guys who aren't getting paid or something like that, I think the guys who are getting paid, they deserve it. Like, let's say, for instance, if we use Donnell Pumphrey as an example, DJ, I mean, that guy deserved it. You know what I mean? Like, all-time college rusher, all those things like that. It's just like
Heisman candidate.
Guys like that, yeah, you just know that those guys, and you watch them work, it's not going to be something where you're just going to be, you know, you're going to feel jealous or anything like that. You know they worked for it. You know that they earned it. And what they do with that, it's completely up to them. But I think in the locker room, it really comes down to, I personally wouldn't hang out with somebody if I didn't like them. And if they were getting paid or compensated or making a ton of money off of their likeness or anything like that, I don't think that would really change how I would really want to hang out with people. But I think for some guys, it definitely might, you know, make them more friends, or people might want to hang out with them more. But I think when you're in the locker room with them, you really get to see everyone's true colors. And, you know, a good example is just working out with people. You get to see how they work out. Really how much effort they put in, how much work they put in, and who they really are as a person. So I think if they're making more money, it's still their money. They're not gonna spend it on you or anything like that. But I think the guys who earn it, that it's definitely deserving.
Right.
Kind of like what Michael was saying.
I will say this much, Jon. If you were getting paid thousands of dollars back when we were in college, you bet I will be standing behind you in the breakfast line. Pushing my plate forward.
Yeah, you probably would have hung out with me a little more.
I think we hung out plenty, but
I know, right?
I would have definitely you know, looked for a perk or two.
Yeah, I think it's all about
me
the
too,
work.
man.
Do you guys think there should be attorneys now then to help negotiate on behalf of the college athletes when they're coming in, contacting teams, and they're trying to work out contracts for the endorsements or to use their names and images and stuff like that?
And I'll just kind of go first on this one, but I strongly believe that any college athlete that's dealing with the NCAA should have an attorney.
Yep.
I just think there's so many rights that players have that they don't understand that they have, and I feel like a lot of those rights get infringed upon, not on purpose, but I just think it's important for a kid, especially an 18-year-old kid, to have somebody, if they're going to get paid, especially to have somebody there that can help them make those decisions that aren't their parents, someone who's actually educated. And I mean, just kind of going through the NFL process and going through the contract process, it's you can get burned easily, and I think that's a big factor and something that should be important. But I definitely think they should have some sort of representation as far as making sure that they don't sign a contract that's going to hurt them in the end or something like that.
Right. Micah?
Yeah, exactly what Jon said. You can easily get burned. The NCAA, they don't have that many fans if you think about it. If you just go on social media, there's a lot of people that are always griping and growing about the NCAA. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to, not give players the best like contracts or what they should be getting paid, just because it's a business. It's a nonprofit, but it's also a business. So they're trying to make as much money as they can and keep it. So I mean, I think an attorney or whoever could look over contracts definitely would be needed. Maybe the team or maybe each school can have their own independent like negotiations type of attorney or whoever they want to represent. Because what I was thinking about is if you have an agent per se or something in the form of that, they might be recognizing that as an agent. If you have your own personal lawyer, somebody that's looking over your contract, they might view you as ineligible. So I think the thing that they would probably do is have, representatives per team or per conference that, that would make their own set of guidelines of who's getting paid or, pay scales or I think that's something that we'd probably see more likely than individual, just because working with the NCAA, that's a lot of kids to go through, and there's not a players union yet like the NFLPA. So I think there's a few steps to go through first before we get to that, but I think it'll be exciting once we get there.
Now, one of the other questions I wanted to ask is, and this one's going to be more tailored towards Jon. Do you think players are going to be more biased on which sport they end up playing in college? Say, for example, yourself, who was looking at playing soccer in college or football, and obviously decided to go the football route simply just because it was going to be a full-ride scholarship versus a partial scholarship. But now even going further than that, say you have both full-ride scholarships, you go play soccer or play football, but football is going to make you a lot more money in terms of endorsement deals. It has more fans in the stands, all that stuff. Do you think now these two-sport athletes or athletes that are in high school are going to be making this decision early on, hey, I'm going to stop playing basketball because I can make a lot more money in football?
I think that's just life in general. I mean, just having to make that decision. And when you are playing two sports, you come to a crossroads where you have to pick which one is going to be the best for you, which one makes the most sense, which one you're more passionate about, which one you really see yourself playing professionally and enjoying more than the other. And I think that all comes into play as well. But kind of the lines that you're going across right now, seeing if you could play those two sports and possibly get compensated for both, or if you're playing one sport and having to choose between each other, I think money could definitely play a factor, and it could be a differentiator between choosing one sport over the other. But like you said, for me, I chose football because that was the only way I could get my school paid for. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a lot more than that, but it was a really difficult decision, and I think for a lot of guys, it's one of the hardest decisions they have to make. I mean, we had a lot of athletes on our team that played basketball prior, and they had to make that decision between basketball and football. And, fortunately for a lot of them on our team, they chose football. And I just think it's one of those tough decisions that you have to make on your own. But I think money can definitely be an incentive to choose a different sport over another one. But ultimately, it's going to be that kid's decision. And I think that's the beautiful thing about America, right?
Now, do you think this will make high school athletics more competitive than it already is?
What?
I'm sorry, did you hear the question?
going to make high school athletics more competitive
Correct.
in terms of like getting paid in college, like choosing that
Right.
sport.
It's kind of like the concept of, you compete more of like a job when you're in college because you're going to get paid at that next level. Well, now if you're getting paid in college, are you going to compete a lot more? Is there going to be more of like a business in high school?
That competition in high school because for the most part, if you're competing at that high level, you're looking at college as an opportunity to earn a scholarship or earn an opportunity to play at that next level. So I think the competition is already there. I think the money, the opportunity to make money in college won't change that because either way, you're earning a scholarship or you're earning something worth a ton of value. So for a lot of the guys, the competition is already there, and they have to make that decision as to what sport they want to take seriously and which one's going to, make the most sense for them and give them the best opportunity. But I think I don't think it'll increase the competitiveness of high school because I think it's already pretty damn competitive in high school.
Right. Now, before we wrap up here, I did want to reach out to both of you guys and ask, now looking at, some schools opting out, some schools still playing, obviously changing the field of the college sports this year. Who do you guys think is going to take the title for the NCAA championship?
Well, which conferences are still playing this year?
I think the SEC, I believe the ACC is still playing. They are because I think Florida State.
Okay.
So
it's basically between the SEC and the ACC because I don't think Big Ten
nope.
or neither of the big conferences are playing, huh?
No, out of the Power 5, I believe the Pac-12, Big Ten, Pac-12, about out.
Yeah, Pac-12.
I don't think San Diego State's playing either, so the Mountain West.
No, Mountain West is done too. Yeah. I think it's literally just between Trevor Lawrence and whoever's quarterback at Bama right now. So between those two conferences, there's not that many. I mean, there's good teams in those conferences, but it's going to be like Alabama, LSU, and Clemson.
Is Oklahoma in the Is Oklahoma in the ACC?
No, they're in the Big.
Interesting, because I'm pretty sure didn't Oklahoma play because their new quarterback that just got 4 touchdowns and 283 yards last night. So maybe the Big Ten, maybe only certain teams are playing because I know we were looking at and we talked about earlier on this podcast.
Well, there's two big. There's the Big 12, I believe, and then the Big 10.
Gotcha. So maybe they're part of the Big 12.
So maybe one of those two conferences is still playing.
Right, John.
So maybe Oklahoma's they're a good contender.
I think, like Mike has said, there's a lot of conferences that aren't playing, which definitely dilutes it a little bit. I mean, well, at least for the teams playing, there's only so much competition now, competition that you can play against. And for the conferences that are playing, I envy them because I wish San Diego State, I was able to watch them this year and watch them play. But I think for the guys that are playing, I think, like what Mike has said, it's definitely going to be SEC at the top. I mean, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, exactly what Mike has said. I just watched Clemson play last night, and they did not lose a stride. They still look like the team they did last year. So I think for a lot of teams, it's just going to be different, obviously. But I think the teams that were at the top are still going to stay there pretty firmly and might be a little less competitive this year.
Definitely. Well, we thank you very much for spending this time to come on our podcast. It was a great conversation. We really do appreciate it. And we also want to make sure that, in the future, we'd love to have you guys back on if you guys are available. This has been a great time.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. Can't thank you enough.
I wanted to ask Micah. Micah, can you stay on for a second?
Go ahead. No,
I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on like that last question that I was asked. Will this make high school athletics more competitive or anything like that? What did you think?
If I was in high school and I knew, you'd get paid at least at college, I think maybe I'd take it a little. My competitiveness was always there, but maybe my how serious I took it. Maybe I would have hit the weight room a little harder. Maybe I would have stayed out in the field a little longer, but I was also in high school too. I was also chasing a couple other things at the time, but I was still very competitive on the football field. So I think what it would do, I think what it might affect, not so much, the kids, because like you said, there's a lot of competition in high school. There's so many kids that play high school football. People that are athletic, they'll come to the top anyway, just based off pure athleticism. At that level, if you have talent, it'll show. But I think what it will kind of bring about is maybe those parents that are like, they don't see as maybe the NFL for their kids as much of a possibility, but maybe they see like collegiate sports as more of an opportunity. So maybe they start pushing that harder on their kids, and maybe they're trying to tell their kids to hey, this is a more attainable goal for you, and you can make money off of it. So they might, those kids that maybe aren't the most athletic or the most gifted, but they're right around that middle. Maybe their parents push them a little harder to get to that next level of their play to help them get to that level. But that's just something to think about. That's why I was in the back of my head. I just see some parents really pushing it on their kids because they know, like, oh, you're that much closer. You're only one step away from getting to a level where you can get paid to play a game. So, and get your school paid for. So, that's already a driving factor for a lot of parents. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, oh, you can get your school paid for. So, like when I grew up, I played sports every season. In high school, I played 4 sports. I played baseball and even track at the same time. So I mean, like sports is big for a lot of families. It's definitely big in mine. But for maybe the people that just enjoy it, maybe the kid that just enjoys sports, but he's proficient at it. But that parent's like, they see it for their child. Whoa, they're starting to pay in NCAA. Let's take whatever you got and get us to that next level. You can get paid and get your school paid for it. Let's start investing in sports. So.
And think about that. That was a good point.
Yeah, very good point, Micah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for coming on, and we hope to have you guys on in the future.
Yeah, it's been fun, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, guys. This was awesome. And Micah, it was good talking with you, man. Miss you, brother.
Yeah, good catching up, man.
That's it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening, and make sure you guys tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to our weekly newsletter and be kept up to date with the new blogs posted. That can be found on sportslawweekly.com.
Make sure also to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and keep up to date with all of our, again, recent blog posts and our podcasts. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys next week.